Welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
Gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small,
Why, hey there, my fabulous listener. Welcome to episode 229 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you, as always, for lending me ears today. I know you have lots of choices, and I do appreciate you making me one of them. If you're enjoying this podcast, I'd love you to take a screenshot and share it on your socials and tag me. That would be super cool. I have a great guest on the podcast today, and I can't wait to share all her wisdom around money and mindset and well-being and profit with you. If there's anything you hear on the podcast and you're looking for the show notes, you can go to all the W's, social media and marketing.com.au/229. But before we get into hearing from the amazing Natalie J. Hall, did you listen into last week's episode? This was an episode where I pretty much talked about me, actually. Where I talked about what I wanted to do better in 2023. I love those of you who have reached out and told me what it is that you would like to do better in 2023. Everything from socials to Facebook Lives to taxes and finance to relaxation, more time with family, and so many other great ideas you had. If you haven't listened to episode 228, then head back there when you're finished here. But let's get on to today's episode. Like I said, I have an amazing guest who's coming to talk to us about profit, mindset, and well-being. Natalie Hall is my guest, and she's using all her experiences in life so far to help other small business owners, perhaps just like you. Our conversations are wide and varied, but all come under the sphere of money and mindset, and of course, looking after yourself in the well-being as well. I really loved my chat with Natalie, and I'm sure she's going to inspire you with her tips, her tricks, and her ideas around all three subjects. So let's get into it. Here's my chat with Natalie. Enjoy. Hey, Nat. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I'm excited to chat.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here as well.
Nat, for my amazing audience who will be listening that maybe haven't come across Natalie Hall before, could you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. I'm a money and business mentor, and I work with business owners and help them who are on the 6 to 7 figure business mark and help them grow their profit whilst prioritizing their well-being and their mindset. And I guess where I've come from in order to get me to what I do now, my background was as an accountant CPA working in insolvency for around 10 years. So I definitely learned what not to do in business. So that was definitely an interesting time of my life, and I learnt lots. And also during that time, I took a year off to go and help run a wellbeing studio with my mum, because I wanted to put myself in the shoes of a business owner, and really so I could understand where they were coming from, I guess, and get some more insight to what may have led them to what happened in their business. So,
any regrets in doing that? Any regrets in trying to put yourself in the shoes of a small business owner?
I was very naive. I thought, it's okay, I've got the practical technical skills. This should be pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
And the business that we bought, it was on its way to insolvency. So I thought, perfect, like I know what I can do. But yes, it was totally underestimated what is involved as a business owner. All the different hats you have to wear, and I guess just having the responsibility of the business on you. Like, you have to generate the income in order to pay your staff and to keep the business going, and making sure that the clients and customers are coming in and the team's happy, and you're looking after finances and sales, marketing, and then also trying to have a life on top of that. So a lot of things. So it gave me a greater appreciation for those business owners that it's not, I actually had the technical skills, but still was finding it a lot of work and a lot of challenges. So so I did that, and then I went back into solvency and still was running the Wellbeing studio at the same time, which I really loved the combination of working and trying to help small to medium sized businesses turn it around if possible, but also working in the gym as the boss and really being able to grow the business. In the first year, we were able to turn it around and win franchise of the year. So that was exciting. So,
Congratulations. What year was
thank
that?
you. Oh, this is going back 2009.
Wow. Excellent. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. So we did really well, and so it was just continuing to grow the business, but also working one-on-one with the women that were coming through, and it was obviously a focus on exercise and nutrition, but also working with them and helping them really step into their power and believe in themselves and have that confidence and self-worth, self-value, which is what I also really enjoyed doing. And so I continued in insolvency, but part of me always was like, I need to go, or I want to go into my own business, because in insolvency, a lot of the businesses aren't in a great state. And the common theme was they didn't have a grip on their finances, and they were generating really good incomes, but ran out of cash, and it could have been avoided. And so I was like, I need to be on the other side of this so that I can help businesses before they actually get to that point. And so that was always the dream. But I think when you're in corporate, you know, you can want to stay in your safety, your comfort zone. And there's all that, everything was, I knew everything. I was on track to be partner. Income was great. Life was going well. And so you sort of get stuck in that thinking, if I go start my own business, that's actually pretty scary. It's all unknown. And there's a lot of ego tied up with our titles and everything in the corporate world. So, but I ended up experiencing burnout, adrenal fatigue, anxiety, and that was the one thing that made me actually stop and go, okay, what do you actually want to do in your life? Because you really need to reevaluate things. So, so from that point, I decided, okay, I'm going to go start my own business. So then I went and did some consulting, freelancing as a COO, CFO, small to medium sized businesses, and then recently decided to move into the mentoring full time.
Yeah, beautiful. So what's your business called that you're doing, you're running, or you're owning, that you're building at the moment?
That is called Natalie J. Hall.
Oh, okay.
It's my name.
Quite simple. Your name.
Yeah.
Your name.
Yeah, nice and simple.
Yeah, that's quite the incredible journey. And I guess, as the small business owner who's listening to this at the moment, I guess the biggest thing that I want them to do right now is take a bow. Like just what you have said, it really is tough. So if you're listening to this and you're still in business and you're still wearing all those hats and taking time to work on your business because you're listening to a business podcast, so you are taking time to work on your business, I just think you either need to take a bow or pat yourself on the back, because I just think that is just huge. So don't stop listening to us, but just press pause for a second, give yourself a bit of a high five or a pat on the back for surviving this thing called small business, because I don't think we stop and smell the roses enough in small business. But one of the things you said, Nat, just before was, which I know, as a podcaster, I'm pretty lucky. I get to have pre and post conversations. So, I think they're pretty awesome. But you've mentioned this term a couple of times, and I guess we'll explore it as we go on today. But it was about being a good business that just ran out of cash. So I've been in small business for a long time, from, a law business to a retail shop to now a coaching and an online marketplace business. So I've managed over the time to be able to read my businesses and know when the strap cashing parts are coming and do something about them long before we get there. But I see it, even through my marketing business, people coming to me that they have got great business models, but their cash is what is holding them back. And I know that you've mentioned in one of our conversations previously about making some time of having a weekly money date and sort of having that monthly planning. So can we chat a little bit more about that? With the premise, of course, that we are speaking to a small business owner who's already really busy. So how do we plan that into our week and into our month?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's so important to do this because if you think of a car, it's got the dashboard and it's got the petrol gauge and it's speedometer. It tells us how fast we're going and all the other things. And, if we're going to run out of petrol, if we're going to get a ticket because we're going too fast, if whatever's going on, the same goes with your financials. So, your financial statements are so important, your profit and loss, cash flow statement, and your balance sheet. And the great thing is that you don't have to prepare these, they're all done for you in your accounting software program if you have one. So, it's really just a matter of printing it off. But what this does is by reviewing each month your numbers and each week, is it does save you a lot of time down the track and a lot of money because, as you said, if we're not regularly checking in on our numbers, we could be spending money that we don't have, or maybe we're not going after decisions or investments that we want because we're worried we don't know where we stand financially. So, having a monthly and a monthly planning day is really a big game changer. As for the timing, so I, for my weekly money date, will do that every Friday. Friday's a fun day for me. So I do Finance Friday. And once you have everything set up, it's really a quick 15-minute check in. 15 minutes, like it doesn't have to be a huge time spent. It's really just checking, especially the weekly one. You don't have to spend a lot of time. It's really just looking at what happened during that week and making sure that you're right for the next week ahead. So, some of the numbers that I look at are what was the revenue and expenses that happened that week. I also look at the cash that came in and the cash that went out because they can be different to our revenue and expenses. Bank account balances is always something you want to check. And also looking at cash that I might have transferred over to separate accounts for tax or super and make sure that they're aligned. And also checking invoices. A lot of businesses can be a little bit of slack, but they don't chase their invoice. They either don't issue invoices regularly or they're not chasing invoices if payment is outstanding. And if you don't keep on top of it, it's going to take you a lot longer and be a lot harder to get that money to come back in. So having a really good plan, and if you check in weekly, okay, what invoices need to be issued that weren't, get them out. What is maybe outstanding, send a reminder to that so you can collect it as soon as possible.
Yeah, so Monday afternoons is my finance time, and I have a very big love-hate relationship with Monday afternoons, and I have to admit, if anyone says, "Oh, you got time Monday afternoon?" Oh, I do. Oh, I really do. Where I really don't. And I book time over it every now and then I give myself a bit of a lecture about doing that because
Yeah.
and I literally make an appointment with myself to go in. We use a program called Zero, which I'm sure that
Yeah.
most business owners are aware of. I'm not saying it's better or worse than any other program that someone might be listening and uses, but that's the program that we use. And I go in there on Mondays and go through it. But I've also, I guess, one of the pieces of advice that I was given many moons ago and that I do pass on to people is because people sometimes don't know how to read those reports. Like you rattled off, the profit and loss, the balance sheet, things like that. And people sort of say to me, but I don't know how to read that. So I'd love to know your advice on that. But my advice that I often give people is just keep looking at them. Because if you
Mm.
print out one this month and then you print out another one next month and you compare the two, you actually learn as you compare because you'll be like, oh, why is that figure so different? And it'll create the curiosity that you need. But if you just never print them off or you never look at them, then you are probably finding it hard to know what you should look at and what you shouldn't look at. But yeah, that's one of the pieces of advice that I give people is just start looking at them because then
Mhm.
you will be curious enough to want to know why they're changing up or down, good or bad.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that because I'm all about the story that the numbers are telling you, because numbers do tell us a story and it's looking at the patterns. There's always patterns in our numbers as well. And so I will look at the financial statements at the end of month review. So it's a bit of a longer review. It's 30 to 60 minutes, depending on what's going on. But I think that's such great advice is if you don't know, you obviously, when you're looking at a profit and loss statement, that's showing you your revenue and your expenses. So having a look at the revenue streams and checking, does that seem right? is that moving along where we want to go? And understanding, okay, expenses, even looking line by line, just again to make sure that correct. And are we spending money where we want to be spending money? Are we getting the most out of that expense? And just getting really clear that we are. But in Xero or any accounting software program, you can print out a profit and loss that compares by month. So you can go back 6, 12, 3 months, however long you want. And it is really good to go back and just see what are the patterns that are happening, what happened this time last year, what happened last month. And that's really good because one thing that you want to do that's going to help you when you do your end of month reviews is to prepare a budget. So a 12-month budget. And that involves forecasting out for 12 months, and you'll break it down to each month. And that's where you'll put your budgeted revenue and your budgeted expenses. And so that way you can then compare your actuals against your budget to make sure that you are moving to where you want to go. And when you're doing your budget, it's really important to take into account your vision and your goals, your marketing. So what have you got planned? Because we don't all have consistent months. Sometimes we do have consistent months in business, but sometimes you'll have businesses that might do 3 big launches a year. And so they'll have 3 months where they'll get their significant income coming in. And having a forecast is really good because if you're doing that, there's going to be some months where you're going to have less income coming in. So you can be proactive and start planning and know I need to put some extra money aside for those quieter months to ensure that we're going to have sufficient cash flow to cover our bills. And the other big thing that business owners is to work out your lifestyle. What is your dream lifestyle that you want to live? How much does it cost you to live? Because we go into business to create freedom and to create a life that we love, and we end up doing the opposite.
It's
So
like
it's
that
so
that meme that goes around. And my daughter would absolutely kill me going meme. I don't know whether I pronounce it right or not. She's always
yeah,
giving me some sort of teenage frowny look when I say that word. But it's like, I was sick of working, 50 hours a week. So I went into business for myself when I worked
business.
24/7. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That is the trap. We all think we'll design our life around our business
yeah,
and, there'll be so much more freedom. And all of a sudden the buck stops with us and we are
right.
working our little tushies off 7 days a week. So,
Yeah, and we don't have a lot to show for it. And so it's really important to get clear, okay, well, what's my dream lifestyle look like? How much does it cost me to live? Because ideally you want your business to start covering it. Otherwise it becomes quite an expensive hobby if you're not being able to generate cash. So getting clear of that and putting that in your budget so that you are paying yourself a wage or and it might not be the dream lifestyle that you want right now, but that's something that you're leading up to it. So paying what the business can in that situation. And it's also the other good thing about it is that if you pay yourself first, you are then possibly left with less to cover business expenses, but it gets you into that position where you have to be a bit more creative, innovative, and get really clear about, okay, what does the business need? Because a lot of the time too, I find there's expenses in businesses that don't need to be incurred. And I think we can see people, oh, they've got that, they're using that they're doing that, but we don't know if they're 5 steps ahead of us, or maybe they've got different capital that they can use that we don't have. So it's getting really clear, okay, what do I actually need in my business that's going to work? So not getting caught up in what everyone else is doing. That can also be something that works really well. So part of the monthly review, if you can do yourself a budget, it just becomes a practical plan that you can use going forward that you'll then compare your profit and loss against. And again, that will help you start getting familiar with the numbers and what you need to be looking at. And especially if the actuals are different to the budget, that sort of can raise some alarm bells. And it's like, okay, what are we doing if it's not so good, or if it's really good? Amazing. Where can we capitalize? What can we do to keep growing and moving forward?
Yeah, I love so much about what you've just said. Um, for sure, pay yourself first, I think, is something that I feel like should be, I don't know, flying behind an aeroplane at small business events or something. I think
Mm,
there are so many small business owners who put themselves last, and I can kind of see why. But I
mm,
also think if you had a bricks and mortar and they put the rent up, you'd find the money. Or if you're paying for subscriptions and the thing goes up, you seem to find that money. So if you pay yourself first, I love how you said, sometimes it just pushes us to be a little bit more innovative, or, to look at other expenses that could go. And again, I think looking at your numbers is really good for that as well, because, you know, I've worked with some small businesses before and they're like, oh, I had no idea I was still paying for that subscription. Or, oh, I bought that, but I never actually use it. And you're like,
Used it.
yep, you probably don't need it. And you could probably, you know, I think I was listening to a podcast once and a lady was talking, you know, she was being very open and honest. And she was saying, you know, she's managed to save herself like $500 a month by canceling all these subscriptions that she
Mm,
thought she would need, but she simply never had time to implement what they were. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's just such a huge lesson. But again, if we don't look at our figures or our bank account
you
statements, we
won't.
don't know these things are happening.
Exactly. And that's what happens. And to do it monthly and to do your weekly so that it doesn't mean the monthly one turns into a huge one. It just means that you're regularly on top of it rather than waiting to tax time when the year's already over and it's too
Yes.
late to make any changes. And
Mm,
it's like, and then even at tax time, we still aren't looking at our numbers to help us plan for the year ahead, to look at what didn't work, where do we want to go.
mhm,
And because even from a revenue, you can have different revenue streams, and you might think one's really profitable, but it actually costs you more to do than it is that you're actually generating. And so, you know, there's times where that surprised people. And then there's other ones that they didn't think that are actually have the biggest profit margin. So it's
mhm,
just being really understanding of what's the numbers? Do I need to cut back? How can I get more effective and efficient in certain areas to increase those margins? But if we're not looking at our numbers, we just don't know. And the other
mm.
big thing is obviously the cash flow
Yeah.
is what you want to be checking in at both of those times as well, because cash is king in business. And I learned from working in insolvency that if you run
That is
out,
true. It's
the
just
worst
not
case
something people
scenario.
say.
No, like these were hundreds and hundreds of businesses that, you know, had successful businesses generating income, ran out of cash and lost everything. And, you know, it's just heartbreaking time and time again when if people had just taken the time to do it. And obviously there's things like fear and mindset come into it as well. And I think we can also get caught up in, we have a bookkeeper and we have an accountant in place. So we think, okay, the finances are taken care of. I don't need to do anything. I've engaged people to do it. And having an accountant bookkeeper for your team is amazing. But at the end of the day, they're there to provide timely, accurate, up to date data, and your accountant puts the reports together, but they're not making the financial decisions. They're not going through the reports saying, okay, this XYZ needs to be changed or things need to be improved here. Like that's your responsibility as the business owner. And so it's taking that on board and going, okay, what do I need to do? How do I do it? But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for anyone listening that we have now overwhelmed with the thought of numbers, let's flick the switch a little bit and talk a little bit about, you know, at the start you were talking about, you know, you talk numbers, but you know, one of the priorities for you is around that mindset and that well-being. So can you talk to us a little bit about different practices or tips or tricks you could give people as far as that well-being and that mindset goes?
Yeah, definitely. And each week in my weekly money date, this is also what I do. Have a look at. I look at my well-being. So I look at, am I getting enough sleep? Am I eating well? Did I move my body? Whether that was going to the gym or going for a walk, doing yoga class. Did I take time to catch up with friends and family? Did I take time out for myself? Did I do something fun? I think it's really important to do a
Mm.
weekly check in because as business owners, we can get so caught up and consumed by our business that we forget to have a life and we forget to look after ourselves. And we are our business's most important asset. And so if we're in grave, we're not operating as our best self, we're definitely not showing up as our best self in our business, and we're not making the best decisions, financial decisions for our business that we could be if we were coming from a place where we did feel really good and we were looking after our well-being. So I think it is so important. And to help me with it, I do a morning routine. And you know, I know that everyone has different amounts of time in the morning that they can spend doing that. So we don't get an hour that we can do our journaling, meditating, exercise, and all those things. So it's just taking whatever time you can get, whether it's 5 minutes, just doing a quick meditation, journaling, going and sitting on a couch by yourself and having a cup of tea or coffee, just taking that extra 5 minutes to just give yourself something, give yourself some time. And then trying to get strict at nighttime, which is always a work in progress for myself, and turning the computer off at a certain time and trying to put my phone down and just winding down and lay out is something really good. But yeah, I think checking on those before is really important. And then from a mindset perspective, I also check in and I have a look at how I've gone and decisions I've made, just to make sure I am coming from that abundant mindset, that I'm not coming from that scarcity, that lack feeling, which can also impact the decisions that you're making and holding you back from, maybe taking a calculated risk in your business.
Can you give us
Or
an example of something like that, just for the audience who perhaps might be thinking, what do you mean by abundant mindset versus non-abundant?
scarcity. Yeah, scarcity mindset. So when we're in a scarcity mindset, we're coming from a place of lack. So there's two ways this can kind of play out. So you can either be someone who wants to keep all your money and you don't want to spend it. So you're not making investments in your business, or you might be not doing certain things, putting yourself out there because you are just so afraid that if you do, you'll either make a mistake with the decision and that's going to cause a financial impact in your business, or you just don't want to let the money go because you just are so afraid of not having it. Or the other one will be you just spend it because you're so worried that you won't have money, that as soon as you get money, you get rid of it. So you'll go spend it on things that probably aren't in the best interest of the business or yourself. Whereas if you come from an abundance mindset, it's more so that the money's coming in. You're not so restricted or tight. It's much more of an expansive feeling, and you're going to have that confidence in yourself to make those financial decisions and take those calculated risks, because deep down, if something doesn't go to plan or it doesn't happen, it's going to be okay because I've got everything I need within me to get back up and go and do what I need to do to rectify the situation or change plans or change whatever. So yeah, they're the two situations you can tend to find yourself in.
Yeah. Thank you for clearing that up. So do you have any particular apps or anything like that you use, to help wind down, or I don't know, to take better care of yourself? Do you have anything like that? Any resources that you would like to share?
Yeah, I love the Insight Timer. I think that's what it's called. And so that's a meditation app. So it's really good. It's got hundreds of different meditations, different times. So you can do 5, 10 minutes up to an hour. They have morning, they have evening ones, and all different types. So I find that that's just really easy to pop on in the morning or at night. Even when I go to sleep, I sometimes just have one of the meditations going. So yeah, I find that one really, really helpful.
Yeah, right. I downloaded the Calm app,
Yeah.
and I did actually pay for the Calm app as well, because I've just sort of been having a little bit of anxiety hopping onto aeroplanes lately. So that's my thing with that, sitting in the airport and just trying to use that. But someone did mention that on Spotify they have, how you have white noise music. Well, this was pink noise music, and apparently it's more productive if we're listening to pink noise rather than white noise. I haven't tested it myself, but that was a recommendation that someone said, to jump onto Spotify and have pink noise running in the background as you're trying to work, as opposed to white noise. So I was like, oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I'm gonna go check that out. I haven't heard of that.
I think I've got the color right. I'm pretty sure it was pink noise. I probably should have Googled that or looked up.
There's one you have with children. Is that the red? Is it the light?
Yeah.
I've got little nieces, and there's I bought one of them a diffuser, and it had the different noises, but I think different lights as well.
Yeah, right.
So
they make all the good things for the kids, don't they?
I know. Very spoiled.
No, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom around numbers and well-being and mindset with us. Is there anything that we haven't chatted about that you wanted to speak about today before we wrap up? Or any last moment, last thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think it's just, I appreciate that it can be if you're not a numbers person and you're not, don't have first relationships with money, that it can be quite daunting and, really uncomfortable just to begin. But I really do urge you to take responsibility for your numbers because, as a business owner, you have amazing businesses, you love what you do, and you're so passionate about it. And so I think it just comes back to then respecting yourself enough, valuing yourself, knowing your worth and knowing your value that you actually want to go and look after your numbers and take charge of those finances and make sure that you're creating a business you love, but also setting yourself up to have the lifestyle you want too, because it's not just now, but it's looking after your future self as well. So I think that's really, really important because we can get so caught up in the now, and especially when
Mm.
business is really, really busy. But we also have our future self that we need to be making sure that we are taking care of. So just making sure you are paying yourself and you're starting to try and put some money away for super if you don't have to, if you're not paying yourself a wage, but just making those contributions, whatever amount is going to work, but just get in that habit of doing it. And, if you don't know where to start, if you don't have any idea about the numbers, then reach out. I'm more than happy to have a discovery call with you to go through and help you get started on where you need to start. If you've got an accountant or a bookkeeper, reach out to them too. Like, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think especially if you are having success in your business, that can make it even more scary to say, actually, my books and my finances are a bit of a mess, and it's not maybe painting the same picture as what the results are at the front. And I
Mm.
think we can be really, there's fear and there can be some shame around that.
Mhm.
But numbers are my thing. Like, I've gone and studied to be an accountant. That's why I know about numbers. So you're not expected to know everything. And yeah, just being vulnerable enough to say, put your hand up and go, look, this isn't my forte. Can you please show me and help me learn what to do?
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point. Like people say to me, people might come to me and say, "How do you know so much about marketing? Like, how do you learn all that?" And I'm like, "But that's what I do every single
Yeah.
day. I do marketing. Like that is who I am and what I do. And it's my job to watch trends and to do all this. And it's exactly what you're saying. Like, you're an accountant. You've been trained. You've worked in the business for X amount of years. You don't expect clients that come to you to have that level of expertise or anywhere near that level of
Mhm.
expertise. So I think if you can be vulnerable enough to come to someone like myself and say, Jen, I have no idea what I'm doing with my marketing, you need to take that same gameness, that same courage, and do the same sort of thing with your numbers as well, because I'm going to want you to
Yeah.
have a budget, and so you need to know what that budget is.
Exactly. And there's seriously nothing more inspiring for me for someone to put their hand up and say, all right, I'm ready to take responsibility for my finances. Can you
Yeah.
please help me? Like, I just absolutely love it. There's seriously nothing more inspiring than somebody doing it because I know how hard that it is to
Yeah,
do. So yeah,
absolutely. So Nat, if anyone does want to get in contact with you, where's the best place or places?
places. Yes. My website's nataliejhall.com, and you can find me at Instagram on Natalie_J_Hall.
Beautiful. Thank you. I will have those links in the show notes, of course.
Thank you.
Nat, this has been so good. Thank you so much for reaching out, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. I've loved having a chat with you today.
No worries. Catch you soon.
Bye.
I really hope you enjoyed that episode. It has you perhaps money inspired for 2023. It's early in February, so hopefully it's great timing for you as the cogs in your wheel really start to turn as we head into some really exciting places in 2023. Thank you, of course, for joining me for this particular episode. You can find all the links, and you can find the links to Natalie in the show notes at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/229. If you've got questions, then get in touch. much, you can head into my Facebook group, Like-Minded Business Owners, or of course you can just reach out through DM, through email, etc., etc. If you love this episode though, one last thing before you go, I would really love for you to take some time out of your day and leave me a rating and a review if where you are listening to this podcast offers that sort of thing for us podcasters. It's a real goal of mine this year to spread the word even further of this podcast and help my amazing guests get out there as well to help other small business owners in areas of expertise that I don't have. And leaving a review for this episode or for the podcast in general will really help that. So thank you so very much. I will, of course, see you back here for episode 230 next week. But in the meantime, let's hang out on social and get social on social. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and of course, LinkedIn. But whatever you do, remember, my small business peep, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.